This conference will now be recorded.
So in the previous session, we have discussed about the Force.com platform overview, and we have discussed what exactly the Force.com platform and why should we go for the Force.com platform. What kind of scenarios will enforce you to go to the Force.com platform, and what kind of customizations are available in Salesforce, and what is the difference between declarative customizations and the programmatic customizations also we have discussed. Now, so today we'll see the Apex programming language. So we have to understand what exactly the Apex programming language and what is the use, what are the various principles, are the rules and the standards and the guidelines we need to follow upon writing the code by using this Apex programming language, and how an Apex program will get executes internally, we'll see practically here. Now, so yesterday we have discussed Salesforce provides a platform called as Force.com platform, which is used to build the custom applications. In order to build your own custom applications, we are using the help of Force.com platform. So as part of that Force.com platform, Salesforce has given a programming language called as Apex programming. So what is this Apex programming basically? Apex is a cloud-based programming language. Cloud-based means what? Which does not require any installations. Without having any installations, we can able to use this Apex programming language to write the code to build the custom business logics. Now, so in this case, when coming to the Apex programming, Apex is a cloud-based programming language. Okay, Apex is a cloud-based programming language which is used to write the business logic. Okay, which is used to write the business logic as part of your application requirement. So in this case, what type of programming language it is? What type of programming language it is? Because when coming to the programming languages, we have 4 types of programming approaches are available in Salesforce. We have 4 types of programming approaches are available in Salesforce. Like we have procedure-oriented programming approaches. These are also called as structured-oriented programming approaches. This is the first one. We have 4 types of programming approaches are available. The first one is procedure-oriented or structure-oriented. Second one is object-oriented programming approaches. Object-oriented programming. Third one is component-oriented programming approaches. And the fourth one is service-oriented or message-oriented programming approaches. These are also called as SOA applications. These are the 4 types of programming approaches are available in our IT industry. Now in this case, now when coming to my Apex programming language, this will be comes under which category? Whether this Apex programming is comes under procedure-oriented programming or object-oriented programming or component-oriented programming or service-oriented programming. Basically, Apex programming is one of the object-oriented programming language. This is one of the object-oriented programming language where every business logic we are implementing in the form of classes and objects. As part of this object-oriented programming language, each and every business logic should be implemented in the form of classes and objects. So Apex is a cloud-based object-oriented programming language which is used to implement the custom business logic according to the application requirement. Your application requirement, it may be banking application or finance application, manufacturing, healthcare or construction or consulting, anything, any application. According to the application requirement, if you want to implement some custom business logic, then we can use the help of Apex programming. Now, the two, Apex is a cloud-based programming language. Cloud-based means what? So which it doesn't require any installations. We no need to install anything. Suppose if you want to use C programming language, we have to install that C programming language software. If you want to use C++, then we have to install into your local system. If you want to use Java programming language, we have to install Java software into your local system. If you want to use .NET programming language, we have to install that .NET programming into a local system. That means those are on-premise, but this Apex is on-demand, nothing but cloud-based object-oriented programming language. So what do you mean by this Apex programming? Apex is a cloud-based object-oriented programming language, so which doesn't require any installations, which is used to implement the custom business logic according to your application requirement. According to your application requirement, if you want to implement your own custom business logics, then we can use the help of Apex programming. Now, let me give the notepad over here. Apex is a cloud-based programming language. Cloud-based programming language. Apex is a cloud-based programming language which doesn't require any installations. Just now we have discussed that Apex programming language does not require any installations. No need to do any installation. Directly we can use this Apex programming language to write the business logic. And now, just now we have discussed that Apex programming will be comes under the category of object-oriented programming. That means this is not procedure-oriented, this is object-oriented. So Apex is an object-oriented programming language where every business logic will be implemented in the form of classes and objects. We will see when moving forward, we'll see what do you mean by a class, what do you mean by an object, what is the relation between these two. We'll see practically one by one. So Apex is an object-oriented programming language, like as C++, like as Java, like as .NET. Apex programming is also one of the object-oriented programming language, which is used to build our own custom business logic, our own complex validations, our own complex transactional flows we can implement through Apex programming language in the form of classes and objects. Now, Apex is an object-oriented programming language. Apex is an object-oriented programming language where each business logic will be available in the form of classes and objects. Each and every business logic will be available in the form of classes and objects. So as part of this Apex programming language, every business logic we're implementing in the form of classes and objects. Then what is the main purpose of this Apex programming language? Apex programming language is especially designed to implement your own custom business logics. In order to implement the custom validations, in order to implement the custom business logics, in order to implement the complex business logics, in order to implement the complex transactional flows, we are using the help of Apex programming. So through Apex programming language, we can able to implement the complex business logics, complex validation rules, and the complex transactional flows, which are not possible through configuration. The features which are not possible through configurations, those features we can implement with the help of Apex programming language. Now, through Apex programming, we can implement the complex validations, complex business logics, and complex transactional flows. So whatever the custom business logic we need as part of our application requirement, everything we can able to implement. Simply in one word, we can say by using Apex programming language, we can implement custom business logics. By using Apex programming language, we can implement the custom business logics. We can implement custom business logic. But whenever we are going to be writing some code by using the Apex programming language, we have to follow some principles. Because every programming language is having its own rules. Every programming language is having its own standards, its own guidelines, its own limitations also. So now here in this case, when coming to the Apex programming language, what kind of rules are available? What kind of principles are available? What kind of guidelines we have to follow upon writing the code? Now, in this case, whenever we are going to be writing the Apex programming language, we no need to follow any case sensitivity. Like when you go to some programming languages, few programming languages are purely case sensitive, where we have to take care about uppercase letters and lowercase letters. Especially, for example, some Java. Java is purely a case sensitive programming language. But when coming to your Apex programming, Apex is not a case sensitive programming. Apex is not a case sensitive programming. We can able to use any case, any character case in order to write the code. Now, so upon writing the code, okay, we can follow any character case. We can write the code by using completely uppercase letters, or all are uppercase, or all are lowercase, or combination also. Both we can able to follow. That facility is available, so no need to worry about that case sensitivity upon writing the code by using Apex programming language, because case sensitivity is one of the major issue for the developers. Why? Because remembering uppercase letter, lowercase letter is very, very difficult. But that problem has been avoided in Salesforce because your Apex programming is not a case sensitive programming. We can write the code by using any character case. Apex is not a case sensitive program. We can write the code by using any character case. Any character case. We can write the Apex programming code by using any character case, uppercase. The complete code you can write by using uppercase, or the complete code you can write by using lowercase, or else you can use combination of these characters also, both uppercase and lowercase. That facility is available. Now, so now here in this case, when coming to the Apex programming language, by using this Apex programming language, so can we interact with the database? Like I want to insert some records inside my object. I want to update some records inside my object. I want to delete some records inside my object. I want to view some records inside my object. Is it possible? Yes. By using Apex programming language, we can perform all the operations on your database. So that means we can interact with your Salesforce objects. It may be standard object, it may be custom object, also anything. By using this Apex programming language, not only performing the validations, not only performing some business logics, we can able to interact with your Salesforce objects also, and we can perform all the operations whatever you want, all the DML operations you want. We can insert some records inside the object. We can update, we can delete, we can view, we can merge the records also. All the operations we can do through programming. Now you can raise a question. Sir, why you want to go to the Apex programming language in order to insert the record or to update the record, to delete the records? Because Salesforce has given a tab. Through this tab also, we can manage the records inside our object. Then why should we go for Apex programming? Because suppose, for example, let me go to your user interface level. Let me go to your Salesforce instance. By using this Salesforce instance, also we can do these operations. We can insert the records also, we can update, we can delete, we can perform all the things. But how many records we can insert at a time? Only one. How many records we can update at a time? Only one. How many records we can delete at a time? Only one. But sometimes I want to insert some 100 records. I want to insert 1,000 records. I want to insert 1 lakh records. I want to insert some 1 crore record. Then how? In this case, if I'm inserting the records one by one, one by one, one by one by using user interface, it will be taking more time. If it is 1 record, then fine. If it is some 10 records, then fine. I can manage my time by spending some half an hour. I can create some 10 records, one by one, one by one, one by one. But in some cases, I want to insert some thousands of records, lakhs of records, crores of records, then how to manage? At that time, we can't use user interface because it will be a time-consuming process. Performing the operations on records, record by record, record by record, record by record will take more time. For that reason, we can use the help of this Apex programming. Through this Apex programming, we can connect to the Salesforce objects. We can interact with the Salesforce objects and we can perform all the operations. Now, in this case, you can raise a question. Sir, whenever we are interacting with the Salesforce object, do we need to use any third-party libraries to connect to the database? No. Suppose, for example, if you're using some Java programming, to connect to that Oracle database, then they have introduced a mediator layer that is called as a drivers. Those are called as JDBC drivers. With the help of this JDBC drivers, we can connect to the database here from Java programming. From Java programming, if you want to connect to the database, then we have to use the help of this JDBC drivers. Like the similar way, if you want to connect from .NET to some Oracle database, any database, whatever, we have to use some library. Nothing but you have to use an API. That means some ready-made classes called as ADO.NET. So we have to use some set of ready-made classes. By using these classes, we have to write some code to connect to the database to perform operations. But in Salesforce, we no need to use these kind of libraries. In Salesforce, with the help of this Apex programming, directly we can connect to the Salesforce database. That's it. No mediator layers. If there is no mediator layers, then if it is a straightforward connection, then performance will be improved. Coding will be reduced. Okay, coding will be getting reduced. So we no need to write any additional code in order to perform these operations. Directly we can connect to that here. The facility is available as part of your Apex programming, so that by using this Apex programming, we can connect to that Salesforce objects directly, okay, and then we can able to perform all the DML operations because Apex programming is tightly integrated with Salesforce objects. It is tightly integrated, nothing but we no need to write any additional code to connect to the Salesforce objects. That inbuilt functionality is available by default. That inbuilt functionality is available so that we can connect to that Salesforce objects also. So now here in this case, by using Apex programming, okay, Apex is tightly integrated with the Salesforce objects. Okay, Apex is tightly integrated with the Salesforce objects, hence we can perform all the DML operations on the Salesforce objects. Okay, Salesforce objects. We can perform all the DML operations on the Salesforce objects. Like that means we can perform insert operation, update, delete, undelete, upsert, and merge operations. Merge operations on the database objects and database object records. Not only on one record, multiple records also we can able to process. That means through user interface, we can create only one record. We can update only one record. We can delete only one record at a time. But by using this Apex programming, we can perform the operations on bulk records as well. That facility is available over here. So by using this Apex programming, we can perform the operations on bulk records in one shot. It may be 100 records, 1000 records, lakhs of records, crores of records also. How many records we can process by using Apex programming? Through Apex programming language, we can able to process up to 50 million records. 50 million means 5 crore records we can process in one shot. That is the capability of this Apex programming. Through Apex programming, we can process maximum of 5 crore records in one shot. That is the capability here. For that one, Salesforce has given a feature called as batch programming. Through that batch programming, we can process the 50 million records in one shot. Yeah, tell me.
The same thing we were doing through data loader also, right, sir? Sir, then
Yes,
what extra we are doing?
What is the difference between them?
One more thing. Data loader is going to be using to perform the operations on up to 5 million records. That means 50 lakhs. Batch programming, that means Apex programming will allow us to process up to 50 million record. Data loader is 5 million, and then Apex programming. In that Apex programming, we have batch concept. Through that batch concept, we can use up to 50 million records we can process. Okay, that is the difference over here. And then, so when coming to the data loader, we can insert, we can update, we can delete, and we can able to export those records. But when coming to the batch programming here, through Apex programming, batch programming is also one of the concept of Apex programming. So with the help of this batch programming, we can do complex operations also, everything we can do. That facility is available over there. And one more thing, data loader will allow us to insert the record in only one object at a time. Data loader will allow us to update the records in only one object at a time. Data loader will allow us to delete the records from only one object at a time, not from multiple. But by using this Apex programming, we can insert the records in multiple objects in one shot. We can update the records in multiple objects in one shot. We can delete the records in multiple objects in one shot. We can merge the multiple records also in one shot. The facility is available here. Now, one more point, let me explain. Data loader internally uses batch concept. Data loader internally uses batch concept because that already told you as part of the batch programming. As part of the data loader concept, data management, I have that information also to you. Let me show you that point. As part of data management that I already told you over here, data loader internally using that APIs. In order to process the records, it is using the two APIs. What are those two APIs? Apex API and the bulk API here. Okay, Apex API and the bulk API. These have been built by using Apex programming. So data loader internally uses Apex programming language. The background concept is Apex programming. That is also built upon Apex programming language internally. Okay. Now, so now here in this case, by using this Apex programming language, connect to the Salesforce objects. It may be custom object. Forward, we can connect standard object, any object. We can connect to any object, and we can perform the operations on the objects also. Now finally, now in this case, we are going to be connecting over here. So now we are going to be connecting to any Salesforce objects, okay, through with the help of Apex programming, and we can perform all the DML operations on your objects as well. That facility is available. Now, so in this case here, By using this Apex programming, not only inserting the record, not only updating the record, not only deleting the records, we can able to fetch the records also. We can raise the question, sir, can we fetch the records from this object here? Yes, we can fetch the records also over here. That facility is available. We can retrieve the records also from the object, not only from one object, we can fetch from the multiple objects also here. Now, for that one, how can we fetch the records from the object? Not only from one, we can fetch the records from the multiple objects also. Then how can we fetch that? For that reason, Salesforce has given one query language that is called as SOQL query. Okay, SOQL query language. With the help of this SOQL query language, we can able to fetch the records from one or more number of objects as well. Not only insertion, but if you want to fetch the records also, then you can fetch. For that one, we are using the help of SOQL query. Nothing but SOS means Salesforce Object Query Language. That means I would like to query the records. Query means what? Request. To whom? To the database. For what? To retrieve some record, to fetch some records from Salesforce objects. So that as part of Apex programming, we can able to fetch the records from one or more number of Salesforce objects also with the help of a query language called as SOQL query. Now, by using Apex programming, we can fetch the records from one or more objects. More objects with the help of a query language called as SOQL queries. By using Apex programming, we can able to retrieve the record, can fit from one more number of objects with the help of a query language called as SOQL queries. Now,
Your voice is breaking.
SOQL stands for what? SOQL stands for SOQL stands for Salesforce Object
So your voice is
Query
breaking.
Language.
This conference will now be recorded.
Now, so with the help of this SOQL query language, we can query the records from one or more number of objects from Salesforce instance. Now, so not only insertion, not only updation, not only deleting the records from the object, we can fetch the records also from the objects with the help of this SOQL query language, which has been given by Salesforce by default as part of Apex programming. And next, one more most important feature given by Salesforce is SOSL queries. What do you mean by SOSL? Salesforce Object Search Language. This is one of the search engine given by Salesforce. This is one of the search engine given by Salesforce, which is used to search for a particular content in all the objects in Salesforce at a time. In the multiple objects, if you want to search for some specific content, then we can use the help of SOSL queries. So this kind of search engine is not available in any programming language. Any programming language, whatever we have right now in our IT industry, like it may be C or C++ or Java or .NET or any other programming language, in those programming languages, we don't have this kind of search engine in order to search for a particular content in multiple objects in one shot. The first time Salesforce has introduced this kind of search engine for you by default here as part of Apex programming with the name called as SOSL, Salesforce Object Search Language. Now, in this case, by using Apex programming, we can search for the required content in one or more objects at a time with the help of SOSL queries. With the help of SOSL queries. So what do you mean by this SOSL queries? SOSL means Salesforce Object Search Language. Salesforce Object Search Language. So with the help of this SOSL queries, we can able to search for a particular content in multiple objects in one shot. Not only in one, in multiple objects also we can search. In how many objects? Up to maximum of 20 objects we can search in one shot with the help of this SOSL queries. Now, and along with that here, okay, along with that, whenever if you want to process some bulk records inside your objects, if you want to process some millions of records, for that reason, Salesforce has given a feature called as batch programming. As part of Apex programming, we have a concept called as batch concept and scheduling concept. With the help of this batch programming, we can able to process millions of records in one shot. Through programming, we can able to process millions of records with the help of this batch programming and schedule programming itself. So scheduling also we can implement, batch programming also we can implement. Everything we'll see. These are all the parts which I'm going to be discussing as part of your Apex programming. As part of Apex, these are all the features which we are going to discuss. Now, by using Apex programming, we can process millions of records with the help of batch programming and schedule programming. So with the help of this batch programming and the schedule programming, so we can able to process millions of records also. That facility is available over here. Now, so that not only utilizing SOQL queries, not only utilizing this SOSL queries, we can able to process some millions of records also with the help of this batch programming and the schedule programming. Now, along with that here, by using this Apex programming language, not only performing the operations on your Salesforce objects, sometimes I want to integrate my Salesforce application. That already told you in yesterday's session, by using Force.com platform, we can integrate with the Salesforce application with some third-party systems. How? For that reason here, as part of Apex programming, they have given two APIs. They have given two APIs to us, that is called as REST API and SOAP API. REST API and SOAP API. By using these APIs, API means what? A collection of ready-made classes. API means a collection of ready-made classes which we can use to integrate that Salesforce application with some third-party systems. So that when coming to that Apex programming, so we have the two APIs are available, REST API and the SOAP API. With the help of these APIs, we can interact, we can connect that Salesforce application with the third-party systems so that both the applications can talk to each other. Both the applications can have the handshake so that they can exchange the data with each other as well. Now, in this case here, by using Apex programming, we can integrate the Salesforce application with any external system. With the help of REST API and SOAP API. Okay, with the help of REST API and the SOAP API. So what is the full form of this API? API in the sense, API stands for Application Programming Interface. Application Programming Interface. That means in order to interact with that application, through programmatically, whatever the interfaces, whatever the connections, whatever the classes are required, those collection of classes are called as API, application programming interface. Through programming, if you want to interact with the application to perform some operations, we are using the help of some ready-made classes. Those collection of classes, those bunch of classes are called as API. Now, then what do you mean by this REST stands for? REST stands for representational state transfer. Representational status transfer. This is the most important concept as part of integration. REST API is the most important. Everybody is using REST API. Your mobile application, smartphones, your banking application, finance application, every application is supporting this REST API nowadays. It's the most advanced feature. And then we have SOAP API. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. These are the APIs, REST API and the SOAP API, okay, which has been given by Salesforce. With the help of these APIs, we can connect to the third-party systems and we can integrate our Salesforce application with those devices or with those systems to have that data interchange. Okay, now. So these are the various features are available as part of Apex programming, which we are going to discuss as part of this Apex. Apex is not a simple programming. It is having all these features. Every feature we will see practically with some real-time use cases as well. Now, in this case, whenever we are going to writing this Apex programming code, so we have to follow some certain principles. Okay, we have to follow some certain principles. We have to follow some certain rules. Now, whenever we are going to write this program code, we have to follow some certain rules. One code, one of the basic rule is that already we have discussed. Like Apex is not a case-sensitive programming.
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Now. So now here in this case, upon writing the code by using this Apex programming language, we have to follow a basic principle that every Apex programming code, every line of code should be ends with a semicolon. It's a fundamental rule. It's a fundamental principle as part of Apex programming that every statement inside your Apex programming language should be ends with a semicolon. It's a common rule over here. It's a common rule as part of Apex programming language. Now, each statement in Apex programming should be ends with a semicolon. Ends with a semicolon. It's a common principle. It's a standard principle which is followed by the Apex programming language. Each statement in Apex programming should be ends with a semicolon. Like when you go to C programming, C++, Java, .NET, there also the same rule is available. So now Apex is also following the same principle that upon writing the code, every statement should be ends with a semicolon. It's a fundamental principle. Now, so in this case, whenever we are going to be implementing the Apex programming code, then how it is going to be compiling, how it is going to be executing over here. Okay, how it is executing internally here. Now, let me explain practically. So now here in this case here, suppose, for example, come to a general scenario. Assume that I have written some Java code. I have written some Java code. Okay, I have written some Java code by using some Java programming language. I have written some Java code. So once the code has been getting written, then what we need to do, we have to save this code. Okay, we have to save this code inside a file. We have to save that code inside a file, where we have to save inside your local system only, because Java programming code will be saving inside your local system. So now what is that extension of this file? Suppose if I'm giving the file name as sample, then the code will be saving with the extension .sample.java. Each and every Java file will be storing inside a file with the extension .java. Like when you go to some text files, it is having the extension .txt. If it is a Word document, it is having some .doc or .docx. If it is a PDF file, it is having .pdf. Like the similar way, each and every Java programming code file will be storing with the extension .java. So once the code is available inside this particular file, then what needs to be done? We have to compile this code first. Directly we can't execute. Whatever the code that is written, we can't execute this code directly. First of all, we have to compile this code. So how can we compile this code? In order to compile this code, we are going to be using the help of a compiler. Okay, we are using the help of a compiler. So what do you mean by a compiler? Compiler is nothing but a component which will verify the syntactical mistakes of your code. Because who has written this Java code? Myself has written that. I'm a human being. I can do some mistakes also. Okay, I can do some mistakes also. So for that reason, here we need to verify that syntax over there. Now, in this case, we need to compile this code over there. Compilation means what? It is verifying the syntactical mistakes. It will verify, do we have any syntactical mistakes available inside this code or not? For that one, it is having a compiler. Java programming language is having its own compiler. So what is the compiler of for the Java programming? That is called as Java C. Java programming language is having its own compiler that is called as Java C. Java C. Java C. C means what? Compiler. Java compiler. So whenever we are going to be compiling the code by using this Java C, then it is going to be generating a class file. Okay, it will be generating a class file here. So what is that class file will be generating by this particular compiler? Compiler is going to be generating a class file. The class file will be having the extension sample.java. So it is having a file with the extension sample.class. It is generating a class file here. But this class file will be having that bytecode format, okay, which can't be understandable by the operating system. So that in order to execute this bytecode, okay, it is going to be providing a runtime engine. It is providing a runtime engine over here. Okay, it is providing a runtime engine that is called as JVM. Okay, it is providing a runtime engine called as JVM. It is providing a runtime engine called as JVM. JVM means Java Virtual Machine. Now, this Java Virtual Machine is going to be converting this bytecode format into the operating system understandable format. It will convert into operating system understandable format so that your code will be getting executed. This is a process will happen when coming to the Java programming. That means what? Whenever we are going to be implementing the code by using some Java programming, there is a compiler is available which is going to be compiling the code. Compilation means what? It will verify the syntactical mistakes. As a human being, we can do some mistakes also. So at that time, upon executing the code, without verifying that, if I'm going to be executing that code, it will be impacting on the cloud. So that here we need to verify. Okay, we need to verify that do we have any syntactical mistakes inside that code. For that one here, it is having its own compiler which will verify the syntactical mistakes. If there is no syntactical mistakes are available, then only we can execute that code by using a runtime engine called as JVM, Java Virtual Machine. So it is having a compiler, it is having a runtime engine also. Like the similar way, when you go to your Apex programming language also, we have a compiler. We have a compiler called as Apex compiler. Each and every Apex programming language code will be compiling with the help of a compiler called as Apex compiler. It will be having a runtime engine also. It is having a runtime engine that is called as Apex runtime. We have a runtime engine called as Apex runtime, which will be executing the code. Now, compiler is going to be compiling the code, verifying the syntactical mistakes, and the runtime engine is going to be executing your code so that we can able to see the results also. So in this case, each and every Apex programming code should be get compiled with the help of a compiler that is called as Apex compiler, and every Apex programming code should be executed with the help of a runtime engine called as Apex runtime. This is the fundamental principle. This is the fundamental architecture followed by Salesforce internally. Now, let me give the note point here. Each Apex programming code will get compiled by using Apex compiler and will get executed by using a runtime engine called as Apex runtime. Called as Apex runtime. These are the two components are available here internally, which will be using by the Salesforce in order to compile your Apex programming code. Now, in this case here, so now whenever I'm going to be writing the Apex programming code, then in which file it will be storing that, what is that extension of that file? Suppose if it is a Java file, it is having the extension .java. If it is a C# .NET file, it is having the extension .cs. If it is an Apex programming, what is the extension? Each and every Apex programming code will be storing inside a file with the extension .apexc. So every Apex class will be storing inside a file with the extension .apexc. Apex means Apex, so C means class. Through Apex programming, we are writing some triggers also. Every Apex programming trigger, every Apex trigger should be stored inside a file with the extension .apxt. Apext means Apex a trigger. Okay, Apex a trigger. T means a trigger. C means class. So every Apex programming class will be storing inside a file with the extension .apexc, and every Apex trigger will be saving inside a file with the extension .apxt. These extensions. Now, then where it will be saving this code inside this Salesforce instance, where all the Apex classes information will get resides. All the Apex classes information will be storing inside a object called as Apex class object. Like all the account records are storing in the account table. That means account object. Lead records are storing in the lead object. And the contact records are storing in the contact object. User records are storing in the user object. Like the similar way, Apex classes information will be storing inside that Apex class object. Apex class is a standard object in Salesforce. Like as account, contact, opportunity, case, like that, Apex class is also a standard object in Salesforce in which all the Apex classes information will be getting resides. Okay, now, each Apex class will get resides, will get stored inside the Apex class object. Apex class is a standard object in which all the Apex classes information will be getting resides. Now, each Apex class code will get stored inside a file with the extension .apexc. And each Apex trigger will get stored inside the file with the extension .apxt. So all the Apex classes will be storing okay, with the extensions .apxe, and all the Apex triggers will be storing inside the respective files with the extension .apxt. Now, so now here in this case, how this Apex programming code will get executed internally. What is Apex programming execution lifecycle? Okay, what is the Apex programming execution lifecycle? Now let's see. Apex programming execution lifecycle. So what is this Apex programming execution lifecycle? Now let's see practically in this case. Now, so now let me explain over here. So now let me explain over here. Now, whenever if you want to, if you are executing your Apex programming code, it will be executing like this. Let me show you that architecture over here. Now, it will be having a respective execution lifecycle over here. So this is Apex programming execution. Okay. So this is the Apex programming execution lifecycle. Now, how Apex programming will get executes internally? Okay, we'll see. Okay, how this Apex programming will get internally in tomorrow's session. In tomorrow's session, execute. Show you how this Apex programming will get executes. I will explain this architecture over here.